kicking off here, look at this.
I've never seen it so bad, I've never seen it so overcrowded, and I've never seen it so violent.
Bit of weed on deck.
You've got a tsunami of drugs getting into some prisons, dangerous weapons being found, there's drones overhead making deliveries.
Unprovoked attacks on staff are rife. You've got staff on the front line with inadequate training.
You've got a prison officer having sex with an inmate and that going viral online. This is the state of the UK's prison crisis. I went undercover in one of the UK's most dangerous jails, HMP Bedford, in February last year.
This morning, again, I walked into the prison without being searched. No one on security.
I'm Paul Morgan-Bentley, I'm Head of Investigations at The Times, and while investigating the prison crisis in the UK, I worked undercover at Bedford Prison. I was genuinely stunned at how easy it was to get the job in the prison. Essentially, no one had even bothered to Google me when I'd applied. There was a specific issue we were looking into, which was to do with operational support grades who wear uniform and have keys, but they're not actually prison officers and are not trained in the same way. If you applied to be an OSG at a prison, you have to apply through the Ministry of Justice, and there is pretty strong vetting. However, as prisons have become more and more desperate to recruit staff to cope, they've been using agencies. We realised that when you apply through an agency, you're not vetted to the same degree. So I applied and I used my own name and my own national insurance details, and within 3 weeks of applying, I was in the prison.
This morning, I arrived at the prison. There was literally no one on security. There was that one OSG at reception, showed her my ID, and then I walked through.
Going undercover at a British jail, I knew things would be bad, but I wasn't prepared for just how shocking they were.
This morning, again, I walked into the prison without being searched. No one on security. Just walked straight through the scanner. The scanner actually beeped because I had my keys in my pocket. I could have had anything on me when I walked in this morning. I kept checking and no one was on that security at the front, the EGS security, for half an hour. During that time, lots of other people came through, other OSGs like me, prison officers, other cleaners, loads of people who work on the site, none being searched properly.
That really shocked me, and I think that's really embarrassing for the prison service and really, really worrying.
Why on earth we haven't got body scanners at the gate to randomly put people through like they do at an airport, I have no idea. I've seen better security at concerts and football matches than I have going into prisons.
I was employed through an agency as what was called an OSG escort. So they had lots of building work going on at HMP Bedford at the time, and while they have all these builders in, they need staff escorting them safely. I was surprised, given the nature of the role, how much access I had to prisoners. There was one moment that it was just me and an 18-year-old other OSG escort who were essentially the security for builders building a new wall right in the centre of the prison with prisoners all around us. They were using Stanley knives and drills.
One guy who came in today was saying that he was worried about driving in because he had knives in his tools, and so he was worried about what was going to happen. Were they going to let him come in? And one of the other contractors said, "Oh no, don't worry, they barely searched." And when I spoke to him afterwards and saw him with his van, he said, "Oh yeah, it was fine, but they didn't find the knives, so that was fine."
At one point, actually, one of the prisoners came up to me and said something like, "Can you give me a tool?" And I obviously said no, but it shocked me that I could be in the building so quickly, be around these dangerous tools, prisoners all around, and it was up to me and this 18-year-old in a similar role to stop that happening.
We've got a lot of young, inexperienced staff joining the job, and a lot of people are getting conditioned by prisoners or exploited by prisoners, because prisoners, on the whole, are very experienced. A lot of them have been in and out of prison for the majority of their lives.
Something that was definitely on my mind was the fact that I couldn't get out. When I do undercover work, often in the back of my mind I'm thinking, worst comes to worst, it gets hairy, I can get in my car and drive away. There's one time in particular that stands out when I was waiting to unlock a door to let some builders out of the area where they were working and walk through the main prisoner area. And just as I was putting my keys in, a fight broke out among the prisoners.
There's all these prison officers rushing to get to the fight and contain the situation. And I suddenly realised I'm the person with the key that is essentially protecting all these people behind me. Who am I? I'm someone who applied for this job a few weeks ago, got vetted extremely quickly.
I thought it is utterly ridiculous that I am the person between these builders and that fight.
The violence at the moment within prisons is getting towards record levels again. So we have at the moment 29 assaults on staff each and every day. We've got more and more assaults prisoner on prisoner, and we have more and more what's called concerted indiscipline. So not a full-blown riot, but cases where mass groups of prisoners refuse to lock up, or they take over a wing and smash the wing. You cannot meet people's needs in overcrowded, dilapidated, chaotic and violent prisons. We need to improve staffing levels.
I never would have thought before taking this job undercover that it would be so easy to bring in weapons, drugs, anything into this prison. It would be so easy.
Unfortunately, drugs are rife within our prisons. Illicit items, mobile phones, drugs, weapons. They are rife within our prisons because prison managers are very reluctant to lock down prisoners in order for staff to search thoroughly each and every area of the prison. That disrupts the regime. All of a sudden, we're seeing drones left, right and centre flying into jails and delivering packages. Why is that? Why can't we secure the airspace around our prisons?
Prisons should be stopping prisoners getting hold of drugs. And you'd think if they did get hold of them, it would be through careful, sly, nefarious means, and they'd be very careful about not getting caught.
I was walking in to the main wing area with a few colleagues, and there was just such a smell of weed around. The prisoners weren't even trying to hide it. It just stank, and that was, from their cells.
I did find that surprising. Not that prisoners ever do drugs, but the fact that it was so common that you could just smell it and no one was doing anything about it.
If we had to lock down a wing or an area day after day after day to get rid of mobile phones, weapons and drugs, the staff on the front line are up for that. At the moment, there's a lot of people getting appeased because the people in charge of our prisons are not up for the fight.
There has been a lot that's happened in the world of prisons in the UK over the past year. One crucial thing that's happened since our investigation is the Ministry of Justice has changed how agency recruits are vetted before they get jobs in prisons to bring it in line with the other equivalent jobs when they are hired directly by the government. So that loophole, hopefully, has been dealt with, which should mean that it's harder for criminal gangs to get people inside prisons to help them. More generally though, the prison crisis in the UK is still an urgent problem.
The last government didn't build enough prisons and they're now full to bursting point.
The new Labour government issued some measures, early release scheme, which meant some prisoners were released early from their sentences to free up space. But actually we're back there now, we're back at 99% capacity. So it's going to be a really urgent problem again, and it'll be interesting to see how the government tackles it this time.